one of the big Vancouver, one of those big centers, but right in Edmonton. All right, let's ask a couple questions. Embezzler is saying that your theme team dominated Diamond. Is that true last week, and then you got playoffed?
No, it wasn't my theme team. It was my main team. I somehow ended up being one of the only it was a short league, so there were only 24 teams, and I think it was 18 or 19 theme teams, and then my team, and then 4 or 5 kind of mediocre regular Diamond teams. And so I kind of cruised through the regular season and then cruised to the finals. And then I ran into Mac Jack's Cardinals only theme team and got run over as if I was playing, just a juggernaut. So a little bit salty about that one, but that's just what happens in the playoffs. So, and my alt team actually somehow made it to Perfect League, which I'd like to flip which team is in, because that team does not have nearly as good roster. But that was
those team teamers. They'll gang up on you. They'll take you out at every opportunity, especially in the playoffs. They don't like outsiders.
Yeah,
in their league. Also, congratulations to Shifted. I see Shifted in the chat, making the World Series, the Perfect Team World Series yesterday, I believe for the first time. I didn't see how that played out, who won the World Series, but regardless, making the World Series and making primetime TV with Out of the Park Developments. Congratulations, Shifted. Okay, a couple more questions before we get to our bounty draft, and you're going to help me win this bounty draft, I hope. Tell us a little bit about your background with OOTP. How far back do you go with the game?
So I started playing OOTP at the start of the pandemic in PT21. I'm a big fantasy baseball player, and with the 2020 season suspended, I kind of had lots of time on my hands, with the start of the pandemic, and I had heard about OOTP for years because I watched or listened to the Fangraphs fantasy baseball podcast with Sporer. And they, OOTP advertised on their podcast all the time. So I knew about the game, but I kind of was afraid to sign up, and I didn't think I had the time to do fantasy baseball and OOTP. But with the pandemic, with no fantasy baseball, I figured I'd give it a try. I tried base game for a week or two, didn't quite, match what I was looking for, but then I found Perfect Team. And after about an hour, I was hooked, and I haven't really stopped playing since. I obviously have to play a lot less now that the pandemic's over, and I'm back to working in the office full time. So I've kind of had to figure out how to play the game, smarter, not harder. And so that's some of what we'll talk about when we get to my presentation. But it's been tricky because I kind of want to spend the time to really play as well as I can, but you have to kind of make considerations for the fact that it's not the pandemic anymore, and there's other things to do, and you can go outside and do other things.
Yeah, that's a common story here from people that they got involved during the pandemic, they played it quite a bit, they got hooked, and then now that things are more normal, they have kind of pushed the game away aside. But let me ask you, what motivates you, what drives you, what pushes you to keep playing Perfect Team? You got your busy life with you. Why do you keep coming back? What is it? The community? Is it the competition? Is it the baseball aspect? What do you love that keeps drawing you in?
I think more than anything, it's the community aspect of it. I've gotten to know a lot of the players and some of the very best players, and if it was just the game itself, I think the game itself is frustrating enough. And even if you're really good, you take a lot of frustrating losses. So it's the community of having people that you can talk about the game with and dissect it, and really kind of get support when you need it. And when you're getting burnt out, there are people who can kind of step up and encourage you to maybe take a little bit of a break and then come back to it. So I think that's the best thing about it, because They're really, it's not the best game in the world, but it's definitely, it has a strong community of people that, really love the game and put a lot of time into it. And, I think that's where I get a lot out of it. When I first started playing, I had 3 or 4 friends from my fantasy baseball league, and they all started playing at the same time. And then they kind of lost interest after a few months. And for a while there, I was just kind of like, I don't know if I'm really going to, stick with this. But then I started to get to know people in the community, and that's what really kept me involved.
All right. Yes. Excellent. We all have our story. We all have our genesis with the game. I go way back to the base game of OOTP10. And, even though there are flaws with every AI iteration of sports games, it just kept bringing me back, buying it every couple years. And then when Perfect Team came along, it was like, base game, hold my beer, because I'm playing Perfect Team, because I love playing against human beings rather than AI. And this is much more interactive with real people in the community. All right, let's go and do a bounty here. We've got a few options here. What are you feeling like? Are you feeling like dead ball to golden years, diamond to perfect, or double elimination? What kind of draft do you want to do?
I haven't done one of the dead ball to golden years before, so that might be fun.
There you go, chat. ID 264. If you want to take out Aster and myself and win 5 packs, only giving out 5 packs today to the bounty winner. Whoever knocks us out of the tournament, you will get 5 packs. We're not going to have any deal or no deal. Draft the best team that you can, and may the best person win. So let's see how we do. Yesterday or last time I did a bounty, I finished in the finals and lost out to Tiger Cub, who beat me out. It was a double elimination, losing the first game and then coming back through the B side all the way up to the finals. And then the AI played some tricks on me, and I wasn't able to recuperate. All right. So, of course, the dead ball to golden years, we're playing with the strategy, the qualifiers for 1930. There is no designated hitter, and we're playing at Target Field in 2023. So it supports higher BABIP and suppresses home run a little bit. So keep that in mind as we draft. So chat, let us know. It is ID 264. It is the dead ball to golden years perfect draft, 16 teams. Get in before it fills up, because it usually fills up pretty quickly. All right, Aster, I'm going to leave it up to you here. Let's see if we can take them down. We got Ruth, we got Johnny Mize, Home Run Baker, DiMaggio, probably one of those 4, I would think.
I think it's between Ruth and DiMaggio. I haven't thought about either of these cards in a little while.
So here we go, 1930 with an edge to a higher BABIP.
They both have pretty decent BABIP. I'm going to go DiMaggio. I think that card's going to play the format a little bit better.
I think that's a good choice. That's probably who I would have went with, although I'm always partial to Babe Ruth anytime he comes up. But
I figured you play with Babe Ruth enough in The Sims that I think you can pass up on him this one time. Second round is very easy. We're going to go with John Beckwith. Because he can play literally anywhere, or just about anywhere.
Going Beckwith it is. And chat, who did you guys get in your perfect round? We got DiMaggio. It is the dead ball to golden years. Yes, that's the perfect draft that you want to get in. And Nick says he had a lot of good choices in his. Ultimately, he had to choose between Walter Johnson, Cupid Child, Stan Musial, and Oscar Charleston. Well, man, 1930. In this case, Astor, do you go with the new Walter Johnson because you're only using 3 pitchers, or do you have to take Oscar?
Oof. I think I still take Oscar, but that's where it gets close.
Yeah.
Now this round is kind of ugly. I'm not really sure if I want. I don't really want any of these guys.
Where's our mulligan? Need a mulligan, a refresh. That'd be cool if once every draft there was a little button that just said refresh cards, and you're allowed to do that once every draft. This would be the round we would do.
This would be the round to do it. I think Billy Hamilton, but yeah, it's not quite early enough for no power, but I know that Wade Johnston's a little lacking. Beckley doesn't walk. Epa's pretty terrible.
I think it probably is. I think it is probably Billy Hamilton.
Yeah, let's go with Billy.
We got 2 of our outfielders already, and this time we got a few good choices. We have one of the best gold pitchers there in Jose LeBlanc. We got Sammy Strang, who plays well in this kind of era.
I think I want to get an ace, and I think LeBlanc is pretty darn good for this format. So I'm going to go ahead and take him.
Okay, and we get one more. We get 2 picks now.
Okay. Also, with no DH, I think LeBlanc has a little bit of a bat.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, at least something.
Yeah.
I might even go Stanley as a second pitcher, if I can pop up his stats for a second. Little thin, but he's a lefty. Got a little bit of eye.
Can he bat? Let's find out. Can he bat? Not really.
Not really. Just a little bit of I and a little avoid K, but that's not going to help us much.
Richmond has a little better BABIP, but less control. So
yeah.
I mean, or there's a catcher. We got Charlie Bennett.
Yeah, I don't really. Not that. He's a pretty decent catcher. Al Rosen. Let me see what his shape is. I can't picture him. He's not a great defender. I'm probably just going to go Stanley and LeBlanc and lock up 2 of my 3 pitchers.
Go with your gut because when we second guess ourselves, that's where we start making mistakes. And those were the 2 that jumped out for you. Oh, we got to go Neil Robinson.
Oh, absolutely.
So that he can play, we can shift guys around, no DH. So this is going to be our 3rd outfielder, but he can play anywhere, even third base or shortstop.
Yeah.
Jack Doyle, maybe. He's got good BABIP, good speed, multi-positional.
He's a possibility.
Ed Walsh.
Ed Walsh. I don't love him. Bill Drake, I think, might be a better fit as a pitcher. Oh no, the control's a little too low. Yeah, I think Doyle.
Yeah, for
flexibility.
Me, between Doyle and Walsh, one of these
between Beckwith and between Beckwith, Robinson, and Doyle, we now have a lot of flexibility depending on what we get in the next few rounds.
All right, last gold round here. Frank Smith is pretty good for this era, although control's kind of low.
Control's too low. I think Shocker might be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shocker has the really good control. Although that home run, there's still some home runs, even though the park is suppressed. Feller's too low on the control. Roughing,
yeah,
that's still a little low on control. Scantleberry,
Low on the
Well,
BABIP.
that's very low on the BABIP.
So Pfeffer or Tommy Butts? There's Pfeffer
I would
low.
I would take Butts as a pretty good defensive shortstop, and then we can move Beckwith probably to third base.
Yeah,
where that's probably his best position, and then so I'd say Shocker and Butts, which I should probably not put together in the same sentence, and we'll never do so again. But in that context, and of course, then we get the perfect pitcher for this era in the next round.
Who's that? Robin Roberts. Yeah. Well, we got to take Robin Roberts.
Yeah, unfortunately, we won't use him much. But okay, so let's just can you move Beckwith to third base?
Yeah.
And then Robinson, I guess, right field. Does he have right field? No, he doesn't.
No.
So we're going to have to play Robinson at third.
Ooh.
Because Hamilton only plays left.
Yeah. DiMaggio only center.
Right. So we're going to play Robinson at third. And then we're probably going to have to play Beckwith at first base or right field. Let's put it at first for now, unless we get a really good first baseman.
Okay. Yeah, so much versatility with Beckwith that
yeah.
You'd even throw him at catcher if we wanted.
We could definitely put him at catcher depending on what we get. And we can even put Doyle at second base if we have to. Nelly Fox. I don't know the Denny O'Connell card. Some good defense. Frank Torrey's not particularly good. I guess I would take Danny O'Connell for the defense.
Danny O'Connell. Need another pitcher. And move him to second base?
Yeah.
Okay. Not Nelly. Johnny and Danny. Danny and Robin Roberts.
There we go.
So then we've got to move Robinson where?
Robinson at third base, Beckwith to first, and then O'Connell to second.
Okay.
So now we've got catcher first, second, third, shortstop left. We just need a right fielder to have a full lineup. Now, Aussie Bluge is interesting because he's a really good VL bat. I don't know that we're necessarily going to face a lot of lefties, but he can also play three different positions. So I'd probably grab him, and we might platoon him. And then we got two catchers here. I've never played this format before. Do we get 10 catchers?
I think I don't know if it's 10 or 12 now.
Okay, well, either way, we've got plenty of options. So Farrell is interesting because he's a two-way. We really wouldn't use him as a pitcher, but he's not a terrible hitter and plays all three outfielders. So I'd probably take Farrell because I don't think either of the catchers is particularly good.
Yeah. Kaiser, no. Okay. We do have still some versatility with Beckwith. He can play right field if we find another really good first baseman, so we could still move him.
Okay. Let's take a look at Fletcher. He's at least got some eye. Warbot would tell us to take him no matter what.
Yeah. Brom, really good in the bolt. Well, no, his control's horrible. Oof.
Yeah. Brower, I would consider. Slaughter's not a bad right fielder.
Yeah, not bad.
I don't know what Brower looks like.
Real weird.
BABIP's really bad.
Yeah.
and that's
Maybe
on splits.
Slaughter, and then we're just looking to think for backups.
Yeah,
Not bad. Kessler. Not
the
for
defense is pretty bad though.
yeah.
We don't have a DH spot for him. I might grab West just to have a really good backup center fielder. Or yeah, that's a pretty good defense, and it's my.
West or of course Crosetti.
Well, we already took
Luge.
we took
Luge, yeah,
Luge.
we got Luge, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have duplicates in a lot of places. So I think West and Crissetti's good. So now we still need a backup catcher. We didn't get one this round.
Marty McIntyre is pretty good for a backup.
Yes, he's a nice left fielder. And what does Whitehill look like? Yeah, not great.
Not very good.
And Drucky, I've never heard of.
New card. It's one of the exclusive cards.
Same profile, so not a great. It's not a terrible fit. Easterling is not a good defender. Babe Herman, if I remember, is a half decent bat. But let me see. Not especially.
For this time, no.
No, this one's not good.
Yeah, just
that eye is terrible. This is a bad round.
Whoever.
I might just take Drucky just to have another pitcher.
Yeah. Okay. We'll keep on drafting through the break here so that we can finish this off. Are we
really holding off on the catchers?
Yeah. I'm hoping it's not 6 catchers. It shouldn't be because all the other positions have more than 6.
The shortstop already has more than 6, so I think we shouldn't have that big of a problem. But that's not good. Wow, again, the no control. It's weird that these dead ball cards all had no control.
Yeah.
Nothing
really jumps out to me here.
What is
not bad bat-wise for a bronze card?
Yeah, I'd probably take Vioxx, just a little bit of flexibility because he's not going to get a ton of playing time. And then did we look at Bob Brown? I feel like
no. I think he's bad control.
Oh, that's even worse control. Okay. And Huck Bats?
Better.
But bad at everything else.
Yeah.
That's a good trade-off. I don't. Wow, this is really. I thought there would be better options. Did you look at Erskine? Good backup. I might take Erskine just to have somebody. Gets us a 7.
Oh, we got to take 3.
Oh, we got to take 3 of these clowns.
Maybe.
Is Woody English at least a good defender? I don't think so. Yeah, Kuhn would be great if he didn't have to play the field.
Billy Nash.
No.
Yeah. Although Isidafo would say Billy Nash is fine. He's fine at third base.
Yeah. Woody English, any good defense? No. That's a half-season bat. All
right.
I don't know. I'm going to leave it to you, laptop. I can't even stomach. Who do you like?
I'm going with the Canadian, the only Nolan.
Sounds good. That's a good default.
Okay, so we got 8 pitchers. We should be good on pitchers.
Okay.
Got a couple catchers, Doc Kennedy and Pop Shriver. So
okay, let's take a look at those to start. Something
pretty similar.
Yeah, I'd probably go with the first guy, Shriver. The defense doesn't matter that much, and the bat. I feel like Jack Marshall is decent, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Yeah, plays a couple positions.
And one more. Mort Cooper.
Yeah. It's not. I don't know. We really need more pitchers, but might as well.
Yeah. We can bench some guys or something.
Yeah.
We can
Oh,
go
no,
with
we get
25
three
men.
of these.
3 more.
They're not going to play a whole lot. I think Ralph Hodgson is decent.
Oof. Oof. These are ugly.
Yeah.
Right. Ralph. Where's Ralph? Yeah, I think he's okay.
Not really, but
No. Danny Richardson? No. I mean, mind you, these are just defensive
yeah. How about Alvin
guys right
Dark?
now.
I'm not sure if I know that card.
No.
No. Okay.
Maybe just defense at third base.
Yeah.
Pinky. 1. What else do we need? A shortstop, defensive. Is Dark okay? No. I mean, we got other guys that can play short, but
Yeah.
maybe some defense, some speed. Danny Richardson.
Yeah.
Because we don't need pitchers. And then
No.
how's this Mickey? Not really. Well, Babbitt, but I don't know. You make the last call here. Who you like?
Let's go. You know, it's New Year's Eve, celebratory. Let's go with a high ball. Just for the name.
For the meme. There we go. We're going with a high ball. Okay. Well, we're going to back out and just see how many teams are in here before we do any kind of setting so it doesn't mess us over. Welcome in, everyone. Happy New Year. We're going to get into some strategy of how to take care of your perfect points, your PP. If you don't have a big PP package, how can you increase your PP? We're going to go through that a little bit later. So we've got 16 out of 16. That's good. We are full. Let's go back in, and I know there were a few platoon guys you wanted to address. So let's look at our pitching first. We want to go 3-man for now because that's the best we can do. Do we want Roberts instead of Stanley?
Probably.
So LeBlanc, Shocker, Roberts, or LeBlanc, Robert, Shocker?
I'd say LeBlanc, Robert, Shocker.
Okay.
And then I don't. Let's see. I'd probably put everybody to middle relief except for let's put Highball Wilson and Drucky as long relief and mop up.
Avoid high leverage?
Yes. And then let's put Stanley on use more often.
Okay.
And other than that, I think that's good to go.
Looks good. This time period, anything you would recommend? I mean, usually people crank down the stealing. Do we want to go a little higher for the 1930s?
No, all the way to the left.
Ooh.
Farther. More left. You're not going far enough to the left. Okay.
0.
Good.
I got it over here at 0. Okay. Base running?
Base running, we want we can leave it in the middle. I would crank down the sacrifice bunt and use squeeze bunt a couple spots to the left. And I'd go one more on each. Same with hit and run. You can do a little bit more in this era. Sack bunt bunt for hit is fine. I go way to the left on intentional walk. Hold runners, there's no reason they're gonna get caught stealing anyway. You might as well have them steal. I don't like playing infield in or playing the corners in, so go to fairly rarely. Always shift frequently and guard lines. I don't know what to do with shift outfield depth. I've played with him. No, outfield shift I would go fairly frequently. Leave that one in the middle. You can hook pitchers pretty slow. Actually, you know what? We have good bullpen. Let's do that pretty quick. It won't pull them that often, but in a marginal situation, I would go there. I would crank up the lefty-righty batting matchups. No, that's pitching. Pitching matchups affects too much who they bring in, so I don't love that one. We don't want pinch runners.
Oops. Let's leave those in the middle.
Pinch hit for pitchers, plenty. Okay. And, yep. And then for default batting, let's go to 96%.
96.
And bench when RP, I usually just do 70. It doesn't really matter for this format because nobody really fatigues. And then let's go ahead and look at our lineup.
All right. I think the match has started, so
okay.
I think we might have lost this. So let's just save these and go back out and back in just in case it started here. Because if you hit it at the wrong time, you lose everything that you just did. So let's go back, dead ball to golden. Yeah. So it's fired off. It's going to play the first game in about 11 minutes. And let's see if it saved the strategies. If not, then we're still good. Yeah, see, it didn't. So import AAA. There we go. Okay.
It's a lot more than triple, but we'll go with it.
Yeah. Well, we're in Canada. We always do things bigger. Bigger.
Got it.
Like our football fields and our footballs are bigger. We have bigger balls up here in Canada. Okay. Hitters.
Okay. So I don't want Ozzy in the lineup VR, but I want him VL. So let's go to the VR lineup for a second. And so let's move O'Connell to, because he's a better defender. And then we'll put Ozzy as the backup. The AI is doing something silly. Let's disabuse them of this. Get Beckwith out of.
Doing something silly?
I know, it's crazy, but there's no reason if Beckwith is starting at first for him to be the backup catcher. So let's move Shriver to the backup, and then same thing at shortstop. Other than that, I think we've got our best bats in there, and then same thing. Let's fix. Okay. Now, small thing, but I like to move my my who would be my 8-hitter to the 9 spot. Oh, it already did that. Okay, cool. And then pitching. Did we move? Did we finish that one? Yeah. Oh no, it reverted. So let's go 3-man.
Do we want to go 2-man or 3-man?
Let's go 3-man for 1930. We could go 2-man, but then I think we run the risk of a couple of our weaker pitchers ending up getting too many innings. So I would move Drucky and I think Highball to long relief and avoid high leverage. A mop up, yep. And then Stanley, we want use more often.
Okay. Do we want any kind of aggressive tiredness hook on our starters?
It really doesn't matter in dead ball. Well, it's not quite dead ball, but in 1930, they're gonna be able to pitch in crazy amount of innings, and then You might as well put it on there. It doesn't hurt, but I would just do it on the starters.
Okay.
Bullpen, it really doesn't matter.
Robert, Shocker, and LeBlanc. Okay. Hoosman, good to see you, Hoosman. Winner of our December Laptop Hound Daily with the most points. So the Dodgers took the Laptop Hound Daily monthly award. So Hoosman, you will have 20 packs coming your way at some point over the next few days. Congratulations. And now we get to see you in the bounty here. So let's take a look at our first round matchups. We've got Ezra Denny's red shirts going up against the Neath and the Griffins. This was at 0 when we entered, so all the teams hopefully are here from chat. We take on the New York Penners by Let Go Blue Jays. Fellow Canadian, I believe, obviously, or a Blue Jay fan. We got the Llamas, run by Music Lessons, one of the new followers from last week, and the Thoroughbreds, It's Wallace. We've got the Michigan Wolves and the Wolfman, who I believe was that the team that beat me in last time in the bounty, going up against Iron Curtains and the Peach Kings, an E6 team. We've got Sporers, Dashins on the other side of the bracket, taking on last night's winner of the Laptop Daily, Bromsian 2 and the Jokerfish. We've got the Hoosman and his Dodgers taking on Fussmucker's Devils. We got the Gorillas taking on GT Sundown's Leviathan. And then we've got Cavacom. Cava's in the house. Cavacom and his launch pads are taking on Pop Stongoria's Wood Ducks. So interesting to see the different strategies here pitching-wise. I mean, unless they make some changes, we got, Boom Boom. See, we never got offered Boom Boom back. I always like him in this tournament. The new Clarkston, Glass Streeter, Antonelli, Mathewson, Hutchinson, Whitworth, Shocker, Roberts, Richmond, similar to ours. Of course, we got LeBlanc. So far, the only LeBlanc. Hensley, Jones, Vandermeer. Smokey Joe, Bremer, Jones. Dodgers going with Russ Ford, Roberts. Is that the silver? Yes, it is. New York, Mordecai. Is this the new Mordecai? Ooh. Great guy to have in this tournament, isn't it, Astor?
Absolutely.
In any tournament.
Although I have to say, playing the advantage of Mordecai is diminished if you're using 4 starters. You really want to only have 3 if you've got Mordecai in there, but
maybe 2 if you got Mordecai.
Well, I don't know. I can't remember 1930. I don't think the recovery is quite going to be there.
Unless you're short
stamina, it could be. I mean, if you limit him to maybe like 140, 150 pitches, but if he ends up in one of those games where the AI never takes him out, I don't think he'll recover in time for an every other. I think you have to go back to like 1910 before you can really do the 2 starters.
Yeah. I think it depends, too, on who you have in the bullpen. So the Devils, who also have Mordecai, so we have 2 Mordecais. You know, they've got Borowy, they got Moore, they got String Bean in there. So maybe if you short pitch him, maybe you go with 2 pitchers. I mean, he doesn't really, from what I see, I'm not familiar with these other names as a good number 2.
Barnes is terrible. Bremer actually is even better. So I would probably still go 3, but I don't think Goldsmith is quite good enough to justify, taking using up a 4th pitcher.
And then the other team with Mordecai, they went with almost a full lineup of pitchers here. They have quite a few. But I like our starters. I think we got a good bullpen, good starters. So I think it's going to come down to, do we have the talent in the hitting side? And the 2 teams that have Mordecai, here's one. You see who they have in the lineup. Elmer Smith, Bobby Veach, and then the other team with Mordecai, Johnny Dickshot. Okay, well, we'll let that simmer. And again, good luck to everyone in the tournament. Again, only awarding 5 packs to whoever knocks us out. So we get to play the first Mordecai. And it could be a very short tournament for us, depending how they because this is the best of what is this? The best of 3? Yeah. It's the best of 3. Hopefully we only see Mordecai once. Now knowing that we're playing Mordecai, does that influence who we save LeBlanc?
No, I think you still want to give your best chance. I don't think LeBlanc is that much better than Roberts. That I also, I want LeBlanc in that number 1 spot for the rest of the tournament because I have faith that we're gonna be able to pull off the upset of Mordecai in the first game. So I'm probably gonna leave it.
Okay. Just something I always wonder, if you're going up against the best pitcher in the game in an ideal environment for that pitcher, do you save your best for game number 2 and just basically say, okay, we lost game 1, let's go on, or do you still roll the dice?
I think in a real world scenario, I'd be more likely to do that. But in this, I just never feel like you're that big of an underdog that, you're better off just giving yourself your best shot in every game. And, and then also just the advantage of a number 1 starter just gets so many more games played over the course of a tournament. If you do go far, that giving that up is a tough thing to give up just for the one game where you're maybe getting a little bit of an advantage.
True. All right. Before we get on to your presentation, we got a couple questions in chat. Maybe you can address here, Aster.
Sure.
How important is catcher defense in this era?
You should still play a catcher in this era. I wouldn't go with Jim Unknown, but catcher ability has some value, but not a ton. And catcher arm is kind of irrelevant because the stolen base success rate is barely above 50%. And so, it doesn't really matter that much. And because strikeouts are down so much in this era, the catcher ability just doesn't help with the framing to get your pitchers extra strikeouts. So I really want to look for a good bat in this era. Obviously, it's especially true if you go back even farther into dead ball. But 1930, at least in this regard, is fairly close to dead ball. So I'm really focusing on my bat for a catcher as opposed to the catcher ability, which I care a lot more about as we get farther on in time.
And last question, and then we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come to the presentation that you put together. What would be the other huge difference recommendation you would make for anyone playing tournaments, in the 1930s or 1920s? What's the other big adjustment that people should make?
I think that recognize that the advantage of being able to play less pitchers is that you're using the best pitchers more, but also that it gives you more hitter spots that you can use and set up more platoons, or that you've got a dedicated defensive replacement at each position, which helps with fatigue as you go deeper into a tournament. But really the number one thing is, in a lot of these formats, especially if there's no DH, you should be able to have at least 16 hitters to have a platoon at every position if there's a guy that actually, works for it. So if it's an open dead ball or 1930s era, pretty much anything prior to 1960, you can do this, where you can have, a full complement of platoons. And then you can also have 9 or 10 pitchers with only 3 starters. And a lot of the bullpen guys won't even be used that much. So if it is a cap, you can cut down on the number of pitchers. You don't even need to field a full team of 26 players if it's a cap tournament, just because some of those guys at the end of the bullpen won't get used. The other thing is, in anything prior to 1960, it's a very viable strategy to only go with 2 starters, but limit their pitch count. And you can only really do that if you've got a solid bullpen. So if it's an open format, and let your bullpen actually get some innings, because if you limit the pitch count to 60 and the batters to face to 18, your starters will pitch about 4 innings or so. And then the bullpen will pitch 5 innings, and that'll be spread out. You can set long relief as the guys you most want to come in, and they'll pitch, the 5th and 6th, maybe 7th innings. And then you can set up like a closer or a stopper, to finish the game. And, those guys will actually pitch some innings. And the advantage of that is you avoid the 3rd time through the order penalty. And you can sometimes set it up with some nice matchups that if people are playing a lot of platoons, if you start 2 lefties and then everybody coming in out of your bullpen is a righty, they're going to get some favorable matchups. All right. Now, your opponent can, have their settings to use more pinch hitters, but often then, it messes up their setup and their fatigue and everything like that.
Okay, perfect. We will be back in 2 minutes and get on with the presentation that Astor came to talk to you guys about. So see you back here in 2 minutes time. All right, welcome back here with Astor 31, one of the premier players in Perfect Teams. Been playing the game ever since 2020, 2021ish, and has a lot to offer the community. Glad he can make it on the channel today. It's a busy time, the holidays, and once again, thank you, Astor, for making some time to come on. I always like to help the beginners, even though we're late in the cycle. There's always new people coming on, especially when there's a sale on the game or they might get it for Christmas or something like that. So I always like to educate those that are just new to the game, because I'm afraid that it can become a little bit overwhelming for some people. They get into it and it's like, oh, all these cards, what do I do? And they just give up after a week or so. And so we want to kind of help them along a little bit. And for you, we all have our favorite tournaments. I like bronze. I like iron. I like the perfect drafts. What is it for you? What's your favorite aspect of Perfect Team?
I think my favorite is the cap tournaments. I just think it takes a lot of extra creativity and skill to be able to build a good cap roster, because you kind of have to. If the cap is a good cap number, you have to have some deficiencies in your roster somewhere, and you've got to figure out the right places to save points and the right cards to use to maximize the value out of every point that you have for the cap.
Okay, yeah, and I know a lot of, a lot of the modelers, a lot of the people that do modeling spreadsheets, they like the caps, they like the challenge, they like the mathematical aspect of putting things together. And I'm just starting to get into caps at the lower level, the bronze and the iron, and I have to admit they are fun. But again, for a lot of these caps, you need some of the best cards in the game because you're choosing so many 100 cards, and you can't really compete, I find, if you don't have those ideal meta 100 cards. Or is there a way you can get around that in caps?
It depends on how tight the cap is. There's definitely some caps where you do need certain top end cards. For example, in like the primetime cap, which is one of the daily tournaments right now, it's a very tight cap, and so as a result, the top two-way cards like the new Elmer Smith exclusive card or Cal McVeigh, the limited edition cards like that can play, that can be effective both as pitchers and hitters at the same time. Those cards have a premium, and so that type of cap specifically that's super tight. You don't need that many 100 cards or top tier cards, but you need those certain two-way cards. So they're not the most expensive cards in the game. They're not going to cost you 1,000,000 points, but they're still, tough cards to get. And then if it's a looser cap, then absolutely, you have to have kind of the best card at every position if it's a fairly loose cap. So as Isidaf was pointing out, some of the caps, but that don't have a perfect ceiling. Like, for example, the welcome mat cap that's on Wednesdays is, I think, low silver to high bronze. High iron to low silver. So cards 50 to 74. So it's a cap. It's a fairly loose cap. So you can fit in a lot of high bronze and low silver cards to make up your team. But you do have to make some sacrifices. Probably your bench guys and your bullpen. You can't really do that many platoons unless you want to sacrifice somewhere else. But you have some flexibility there. Also, I think that tournament doesn't have special edition cards, so there's not really a lot of expensive cards that you're not going to have unless you just choose not to get them, because there's very few expensive ones in there.
I think that's a good one for beginners just getting into caps to test the waters with, because I mean you can buy some cards fairly cheap. Again, like you said, low silver. Or lower. That's why I like the bronze daily cap or the iron daily cap, because you're not looking at expensive cards, and I play those tournaments anyway, so I have a lot of those cards. It's just a matter of what do I prioritize. And Caged Wisdom is saying that enjoy cap with the tiers. I'm guessing that's like going from, like you said, the welcome mat silver to iron. Is that what a tier means in cap?
Well, tier would be, for example, there's gold only. So it's only gold cards, so 80 to 89, and then the cap works out that your average card is around an 84, and so you have to use a lot of the cards that are like 80 81s to balance out so that you can afford to have some of the top 88 to 89 cards in there, and you've got to find the cards that play a little bit above their points, but it's not a huge spread. So in some cases, the 83 or the 84 might be the best card in the format. For example, gold only is a lot of fun. I actually rebuilt my gold only roster this morning, and it's a fun format because there's a lot of cards that are very splitty. So, for example, there's that PTCS card from the last one, Tony Phillips, that's amazing versus lefties and can play a bunch of positions, but you don't really want him playing versus righties. But then there's also Zach Geloff is a card that's, I think, an 83 that is amazing versus righties, but terrible versus lefties. So even though it's a cap, because both one's an 83, one's an 84, you can do an effective platoon of those two cards, and it doesn't even add up to one max player. It's cheaper than using an 89 that plays both ways. So you can, and that combination is going to be more productive than even the best 89 overall players. So those only formats are a lot of fun. One of the things we tried for Tournament Lab this time around is kind of a split only. So it's high silver to low gold. So it's cards 75 to 84. So it's not just silver and it's not just gold. It's the top half of silver and the bottom half of gold, just to kind of, make it something where we don't do very often. And just a different mix of cards become interesting, because anytime you change what the floor is, the card that's on the floor just gets a little bit more value, because so many of the caps, the floor is 40 and everybody plays the same floor cards in every cap tournament. But if you change the floor to a different number, it just kind of changes what the cards that you're using to fill out your roster are. And then there's different strategies based on how strong of a card is the card at the floor, because the 40s generally are pretty bad, but the floor is 75. You're still using a pretty good card as your floor card, and in some cases, like the 75 Ryan Braun is actually a really good hitter versus lefties that you're using as a 75 that doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, that's, again, these cap tournaments for you guys that play caps. I mean, there's so many choices and opportunities for platoon situations, I find, in bronze. Same with gold that you're saying. And as you said, sometimes the 100 aren't always expensive. Like recently in the pop-ups, we had, I think, a 1919 or a 1920 where Bob Carruthers, or Monty Irvin, that aren't hundreds of thousands of points, but you notice their value go up quite a bit when these tournaments come out, because I remember Bob Carruthers at one time was just, 25, 30,000 perfect points. And now because of a tournament like this, he doubles in price because people are looking for that high value.
Well, I think he also doubled in price because he was needed for the baseball reference missions.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he, in order to get Halliday, which you needed to get Gibson, I think you needed to lock. You mean you didn't have to, but he was going to be one of the cheaper options to lock those guys. So I think that probably was the bigger driver of his value, because you also had the exclusive cards that the Mordecai Brown and the Walter Johnson were two of the very best pitcher options for that format.
Right.
And so that was a big factor, is those two cards really changed for the people who were able to get it quickly to get in. I signed up for the first one, which was the 2023 cards. And then I didn't even get into the dead ball.
It's funny because, when new cards are announced, sometimes we all look for different things in the cards, and a lot of the cap players look at that last digit. Is it a 5? Is it a 4? Is it a low iron? Is it a high iron kind of thing? Because it can make a world of difference. Okay. Happy New Year, everyone. Exto4S is in the chat. Good to see you, fellow Canadian, in the chat here. And the main reason I invited Astor on was to talk a little bit about how you can make the most out of your PP. We see people that are really good at managing their perfect points, and yeah, of course you can buy them. If you have a lot of money, just buy. But the majority of perfect team players are either free to play or PT plus only. And we want to give you some advice. Astor wants to give you some advice, because I don't think maybe less than half the people really know how to have success with their perfect points. And you obviously know what you're doing. I forgot to ask you, have you won any physical trophies over the years from Perfect Team?
So I won PTCS the first year that they did it, when they gave out belts. So I have I have a PTCS belt, and then I have a Perfect League trophy from this season.
Oh, cool. But Kidneys has a belt, so really, is that an accomplishment?
It did kind of diminish the meaning of owning a belt, but it still is a really cool belt. So,
that sounds awesome. Okay, I'm going to let you take it away. Just let me know when you want to go from slide to slide. I might interject with some questions, but the floor is yours.
Thank you. And please do ask questions if there's anything that's unclear, or just you want to know more. So the basis of this is that I see in main Discord people constantly posting things about cards they're buying, cards they're selling, and I really get the strong sense that a lot of people are constantly making the same mistakes with regard to how they manage their their perfect points and how they generate perfect points. And there are a lot of very simple things that I've figured out how to do in playing the game for a few years that I think most people aren't doing that will give you a big advantage. The first thing that I just want to stress with this is patience is the number one and most important thing with this, because I think a lot of people, they get some points from something and they immediately want to spend it. Or they get a new card and they immediately want to list it on the auction house. And you, more so than ever in PT24, timing is important. And often right now is not the time to buy or not the time to sell. And you have to kind of figure out what are those correct times. So I'm going to go into a lot of detail about, how to figure out the timing and kind of the cycle that a lot of these cards go through. But I really want to stress right off the bat is patience is important. And, I'm going to yell this at Xtaforus because he's one of my favorite players in the game, but his Achilles heel is impatience, and he knows it, and we've talked about it. But this slide is mostly for him. I even use the same template from our streams just so I can hammer it home with him. The second most important thing is it takes points to make points. This is one of those things that I constantly see people doing is they get some points and they immediately I need to upgrade second base. And they go and they buy the best second baseman available, and then they're back to 0 points, and they now can do nothing. And another better second baseman could come along, and they've used up their points. They're probably not going to be able to sell the person and buy back. And so they're kind of frozen. If you have no points in your account, you have no flexibility. You can't buy when it's a good time to buy. And so the most important thing is early in the cycle, whether you're starting at the beginning of the cycle or if you're starting right now, is build up a trove of points that you can use. So at the beginning of the year, whether you buy points or you're just starting out, do all the usual things that you need to do to, collect points, watch Laptop Hound stream, watch the official streams, other affiliates, get those 50, 60 packs every week, open those up. We'll talk about selling the cards in a little bit, but, you're going to want to generate points, but don't rush to buy anything. Especially if you're not trying to, the first couple month or two of the season, there is no perfect league. There's no rush to get to the top. Whether you want to play slowly and get to diamond or farther, or whatever level is the highest level you're going to get to, there's no rush. And it's not going to help you that much to advance faster. Don't feel like you have to improve your team, especially your league team, much at all the first couple months of the season. Accumulate points. The only cards that you should really be buying is cards for whatever tournament teams that you want to play. So if you start out the year and you say, I'm going to play Iron and Bronze, by all means, spend the points to get the cards that you think are going to help you win, Iron and Bronze tournaments. If you want to try and compete in all the tournaments, buy the cards for that. Obviously, that's going to cost a lot more, and you're going to have to put in a lot more work to try and generate more points. But that's the only thing you should really be spending on early. The rest should be trying to build up, a really solid amount of points. Now, for early in the season, probably talking about maybe 250 to 500,000 in points. It seems like a lot, but early in the year, nothing's super expensive. But if you build out that kind of trove of points, you now have flexibility, because what you can do is when you see an opportunity that something is undervalued, you can buy it. If you see somebody, I'll give a great example. A couple of years ago, somebody posted in Maine that their new top closer, I forgot who it was, who was going for 100,000 points at the time, blew Game 7 of the Diamond League World Series. And so they put them on the market for 50,000 because they were in a rage and they were like, I don't want him on my team anymore. So I bought him for 50,000, waited a couple hours, relisted him for 100,000, and made 40,000 points for basically just happening to be paying attention when this other player got upset and made a mistake. So I was able to profit off of that. Just one, because I happened to be around and playing and paying attention to what was going on in the Discord, but also I had the points. If I only had 20,000 in points when that had happened, I might have seen the posting, but couldn't have done anything about it, because by the time I sold off whatever I needed to sell off, somebody else would have grabbed them. So, there's an expression, chance favors the prepared mind. So if you have that trove of points, you have the ability to react to situations, because OOTP throws a lot of weird stuff at us. Suddenly there's a new iron LE card that's massively popular that is in packs, and they just tell us at noon. And if you happen to have a bunch of packs, you can rip those at that time, and maybe you strike and hit that great new LE card. Or they offer spotlights and they put it at a price that's too low, and you can buy a bunch of spotlight packs because you've saved up, and you're taking a chance. You might still get unlucky, but if you're buying a bunch of spotlight packs, you're far more likely to end up with a good result. So I really try, early in the year, I want to have a cushion, probably for me at least 500,000 points, and then as the year progresses, that goes up and up. Right now, I rarely go below 1 million points, and often also throughout the year, I have a huge reserve of live duplicates that might be 500,000 to 1 million. That if I ever really needed to, if there was some card I really wanted to buy, or I saw an opportunity, I could sell that off just pushing a button. I might be losing some value in the potential of live spec for later in the year, but if I really felt like I needed to, I'd have that ability. So that's almost like having points if you've got live cards, dupes that you could sell very quickly.
All right. A couple questions on that.
Sure.
Now that you mentioned a few things, but before that, let's show you the bounty quickly. And
Okay.
Aster, I can't believe it. We beat Mordecai Brown in game 1.
Oh.
We lost game 2, and look at game 3.
Wow. So we came back in the 9th and then came back in. No, we lost.
We lost.
Oh, no.
18-17. I don't know if I've ever seen a game in the 1930s. 18-17.
That was so confusing. I didn't even understand who won. Oh, no.
Look at that. The New York Penners score 8 runs in the last 8 runs in the last 3 innings. It went to extra innings. We score 1 in the top of the 10th, and then they walk off with 2 in the bottom of the 10th. We scored 7 runs in the 7th inning to make a game of it. What a great! Other than the 2nd inning, runs were everywhere.
Yeah.
And maybe it was our pitching. Urban Shocker went 5 2/3, gave up 7 runs. Mort Cooper gave up 3. Erskine gave up 6.
Wow. I can't believe Stanley was the guy that blew it for us.
Yeah.
Oh.
So congratulations. What a man. I can't. This is where the random generation just kind of takes over. Not much we could do there in the game. When you lose 18 you score 17 runs, Aster, you should win a game.
Yeah. Well, and also the run environment usually isn't this high. I mean, occasionally you just get weird, crazy games, but that's pretty strange to have that many runs scored.
Game 1 was 2-1, and it went 13 innings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mordecai Brown pitched 12 2/3. They really extended Mordecai. LeBlanc went all 13 innings for us, giving up the 1 earned run. And then it was crazy. Game 2 was pretty high scoring, 16-6. They scored 9 runs. Once again, I think we had, 4? It was 7-4. And then they scored 9 runs in the top of the 9th. And again, Farrell gave up 6 runs there. Nolan gave up. We just didn't have, I guess, the luck of the pitching. But we gave up 117, 35 runs in 3 games. Crazy. So congratulations go out to our bounty claimer, the New York Penners. Let go Blue Jays. 5 packs will be making their way to your account over the next 48 hours. The rest of you guys are just playing for in-game now. We've got the Griffins against the Penners, the Llamas against the Wolves, Cava going up against the Yonkers, and then Fussmucker beat the Dodgers, and they're going up against Spora. I'm one of those players, if I can get past round 1, I can usually go fairly far in a tournament, but those round 1s just bite me in the butt so many times. Let's celebrate our loss. Cheers. Okay, let's get back to the presentation. Now we can focus on more serious things. A couple questions I have. You talk about early on in the cycle some strategies. Now, again, most people are free to play or they put very little money into the game. I'm one of those people. However, if you were to put $50, $60 into the game, is it best to do it at the very beginning, or does it not really matter?
No, it absolutely is most important. If you're going to spend a little bit, if you're saying, okay, you know what, I can spend $20 a month, or $10 a month or whatever, don't do it that way. Figure out what you were willing to spend on the game for the year and spend it all on the first day of the season. Packs are never more valuable than that first day of the season when people are willing to go crazy to finish the live missions first. And you can get, $5,000 for a live gold and $2,000 for a live silver, and all those crazy prices. And some of the pretty lousy launch perfect cards will go for hundreds of thousands of points. That's the time to be buying some points, opening some packs, and then selling those cards. It's a huge advantage, and especially it's a big kickstart from, if you're starting a team from scratch at the beginning of the year, you get 6,000 points or 1,000 points and 6 packs. Maybe you get a couple loyalty packs. And then, the first couple of days, you really don't have much to work with to even really start putting together tournament teams. But if you, let's say you buy, let's say you were going to spend $10 a month. So instead you buy $100 worth of points first day of the season, you get 175,000 points. Plus, if you do PT Plus that first month, you're going to get additional 20%. So you're going to get an additional 35,000 points. And so that's a nice little bonus to get 35,000 extra points for the $7 for PT Plus among all the other benefits of having PT Plus. And those
good question by music lessons here.
Yeah, I like that question. I'll get to that in a second. And then when you have those points, now you can do a couple different things at once. You can buy some packs to try and get some cards to be able to sell. You can really build a couple different tournament teams right off the bat. That even though the top iron and bronze cards will be a little bit expensive, you might have to pay $1,000 or $1,500 for some really like the Dave Kingman, I think, was over 1,000 points for a week or two. And if you really wanted to have a good iron team off the bat, you had to spend the points on that. Which if you're starting out, the first day, 1,000 points is a lot of points. But if you're starting with 175K plus 35 is 210,000, now 1,000 points isn't that really that much. So that's an important consideration, is that it really does give you a big leg up. And then, if you start doing some of the things that I'm talking about, you don't really have to do that much more to build up that, to go from 210,000 to, 500,000, like I'm talking about, doesn't take a lot of effort. But to go from 1,000 to 500,000 is going to take a lot more grinding. So it does give you a big bonus. Not that you have to do it, but if you do, understand that you're going to get a big benefit from it.
Okay. Another thing I mentioned, you talked about the LEs and when those come out. I found that.
I got to stop you for a second. My computer is, if you hear that weird beeping sound, it's got some problems. I'm actually getting a new computer delivered this week.
Okay.
I need to shut down and restart, so
Okay.
I can sign back on in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Sounds good. You can use the
Okay.
same link I sent you. All right.
Okay.
We'll see you back in a couple minutes. All right. Yeah. Computer getting hot, computer getting warm, and I've had those issues a lot of time. Probably a laptop that Aster is on right now. Maybe a regular PC, but so there you go. Tip number 1, when you're starting out with OOTP25, one of the things, if you are willing to invest some money, don't go monthly. Don't say I'm going to put $20 unless your budget, only allows you to put in so much every month. But if you can put it in all at once, put it in the first day or two, get that bonus PP that they offer at the beginning of the cycle, and just rip packs, sell the cards, and build up your perfect points. And yeah, great advice there. Okay, let's go out here for a sec, and let's check this out while we wait for Aster to come back. Happy New Year, everyone. Glad you could spend a few moments here with the Hound. We will be going over to EBC once the stream is over. He will be talking theme teams after the delay in the playoffs yesterday. He will be going on to some theme teams, and congratulations to the theme team winners from last week. And it looks like you are back.
Yep. Sorry about that.
All right. No problem.
I was hoping that it would survive it through a whole stream, but it's getting very temperamental at this point. It overheats and has to just shut down for a minute. Okay.
Since we're talking about beginnings, and we'll get to the other slides later because maybe you covered some of this, but what I like to do, because I play bronze and iron, every time an LE comes out in bronze or iron, I like to buy it right away, because sometimes it takes a while to determine whether it's going to be a meta card. And by that time, like with the Ricky Henderson from last year, it's too late. The price skyrockets. And when there's 100 of them, I like to put in a reasonable buy order, not the highest, not the lowest, but a reasonable one, because my mentality is that there are people pulling these packs, pulling these cards that probably aren't playing iron and bronze and just want to sell them for a good price. So when Bronzy came out, when Stalker came out, when Archie Vaughn came out, when these cards come out at the lower levels, I like to get them early. And if I miss out on one, like a Candy Maldonado, maybe he's not meta, but I still like to get him for 15,000, maybe 10,000 if I'm lucky, because he could be meta for a long time. Is that good advice for when new cards come out?
What I found is that, generally speaking, it makes sense to, especially if you're an iron or bronze player, to get all of the LEs for that level, unless you look at it and just like, this card does not play, I'm never going to use it. But there have been very few of those. And usually, for a PTCS format, or if, Nico changes it up and goes to a different era, some of those cards that you didn't think were viable suddenly become much more interesting, because if there's a limit to, what eras are included in the tournament, maybe, the top options get lopped off, and suddenly somebody you didn't even think of, because he's the 5th best option, is suddenly a must have at that position. So I generally, try and get some almost every LE from the levels of tournaments that I'm trying to play, if I think that they have any viability. In terms of when to buy, if it's a 100 count LE, I usually kind of ignore when the first 50 or 60 of them have sold. I don't rush to be the first one to buy. And then I'm looking to put up a buy order at that point. For example, the Sinchu Chu, which is a gold, but I play a lot more gold tournaments. When it first came out, the early sales were well over 100,000. And now that we're down to like the last 20 or so, I put in a buy order, I think yesterday, for 45,000, and was able to get one. And so generally, I'd say when it's about 2/3 of the way, somewhere between 60 and 70, that's when I would look at where the buy orders are and kind of get a feel for, how much the market's going to dip. I mean, one thing is some cards are just so good, Ellie's, like the Eugenio Suarez bronze card never dipped. It actually started low and then just kept on going higher and higher and higher. And so I would try and, figure out what, just how popular the card is. You have to have some sense of that, because like a card like Chew is still a really good card for, gold level tournaments, but, people were paying 100,000 for it. People like apparently Ludwig paid 100,000 for Chew. But if you were willing to wait a week or so, you were able to get them for, right now for like probably around 50, or maybe even a little less. But also if you buy them and it turns out that that you don't really use the card, a lot of times when they out of packs, there's a bump in price when the people who missed out and were holding out to buy suddenly realize, there's no more in packs. I'm not going to pull one. I better buy one. So even some of the mediocre to bad LE cards get a bump in value once they're out of packs. And so if you kind of try them out on your team for a little bit and realize that, it's not a good fit, if you've invested a lot, you still might be able to get out at a good price. But generally speaking, I like to kind of buy those and stash them, because a lot of them have kind of resurfaced as usable cards at different points during the year because of all the different tournaments.
Great advice. So again, once again, if you're just joining us, Pastor31 here with us on this New Year Day, giving you some advice on how to manage your PP, especially early on in the cycle right now. And for those LEs, wait. If there are 100 of them, wait until there's 60 to 70 sold, then make your move for a lower buy order. And if you're not getting it filled by the time there's 90 or a little bit more sold, then you might want to up it, because once they're out of packs, that price is going to go up again. Suarez, a little bit of different circumstance because there was only 50 of them. So that, I think, kept the price fairly high most of the time. If there had been 100, you probably would have got some deals around that 60 or 80 mark. But yeah, he was definitely a game breaker. Okay, let's go on to the next slide here. How to generate some perfect points.
Okay, so a lot of these we don't really need to spend much time. Drops, we already discussed. Pretty passive income stream. If you just watch the streams, I recommend putting the sound on for Laptop Hound stream. Others, that's optional. X2Force's stream, definitely go sound. Beyond that, I guess as a general rule, Canadian, sound on. Anybody else, optional. Login rewards. Login rewards, same thing. Just make sure you log on at least once a day to pick those up. And achievements, again, that's just in game. There's some degree to which you can try and maximize achievements, but to borrow a phrase from our long band friend Pidge, the juice is not worth the squeeze. The amount of time and effort it's going to take to try and get the extra points out of squeezing out of achievements is just not going to be worth it. And then tournaments, that's a big thing. We could spend a whole bunch of streams talking about strategy for tournaments, maximizing ability to points. Come on, Isadafo, Kidneys does not stream anymore. We all know that. Mute is kind of irrelevant. But tournaments, there's definitely ways to maximize points for tournaments. I don't really want to get into that now. Buying points, we kind of really discussed. If you're gonna buy points, buy early. Buying points later you just end up in a cycle where you're constantly buying points just to stay current. But if you buy points early and you build, then you don't ever have to buy points again. And you're still going to have limitations, and you may not be able to compete at the very top with the people who are, spending money and doing some of these things, or the people who obviously who get lucky, or the people who are really good at tournaments and win a lot of points from that. But those things, the first 5, I just wanted to breeze through. Live spec also, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on. Generally speaking, early in the cycle, you just want to kind of accumulate all the live cards you can, sell off dupes because they have a ton of excess value. You probably even want to sell off singles if they're really in tough missions, because you want to try and get the value from that, and you're always going to be able to buy them back later. And then it seems like around 10 days to 2 weeks before we get a live update is when people really start focusing on it and buying up the cards. If you're willing to invest a lot of points in live spec, you can do it right away, because the first couple of weeks after a live update, you can often get all the diamond cards and all the gold cards for basically quick sell prices. People were just giving them away, and that can be good, but you're investing a lot of points in that. You also have to spend the time to kind of, be paying attention to real world baseball to know who's going up, who's going down. And to a certain extent, it's not even spec really. If you're just buying up everything early in the month, it's just, you buy up everything and then you sell off what's not going to go up. And so you have to have a lot of points to do that properly. But it can be worth it. And that can really generate a huge amount of points if you're willing to commit the time to it.
I think since we're kind of on that live topic, a couple things that, were new this year. One is the, PT Live, which I think next year are going to get a lot more people involved once they saw what the overall prizes were at the end. I think a lot of people were like, whoa, 800 packs or whatever they gave. Right. I think we'll get more people invested. And the other thing, Astor, that was different was the live cards late in the cycle had some value, and that's something that we're not used to in Perfect Team, because usually we get some award missions at the end, but here we had the PT Elite that came out, which required a lot of those live cards. So we saw Freddie Freeman going for close to 100,000 and some diamond cards going for 25,000 live cards, and there's still some in the market that are fairly high priced. So careful with those live cards going forward. Did you answer? I think you kind of answered the question about selling dupes versus original. You said sell your original if the prices are fairly good at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I think too many people have this mentality of, I can't sell any original cards because it might be an emission later. The problem is that, especially with live cards, you could have a live silver. If you're not looking to actually complete the live missions right away because the price is too high overall, there's no reason to hold on to that card. If, let's say, it's a random live silver card that you're not going to play in any tournaments, and it's going for 2,000 points, you can sell that card the first week of the season for 2,000 points, and you'll have first of all, you'll probably pull it a bunch of times in packs later on, or you can always just buy it back when the price collapses, and you decide to start working on the missions. And think about it. The PT Elite missions were 7 months after the start of the cycle. So you had a lot of time in there to rebuy before you needed that card, for the missions. Like I probably from maybe June onward, without buying up any individual live cards, I had every live card in the game. Part of it is I have kind of like a little bit of OCD that I want to try and collect everything, and I try to by the end of the cycle I try to have every packable card in the game. Lives are pretty easy, often just by buying packs over the course of the season, and all the login packs and drop packs and tournament packs. I end up without buying any of them, I just end up with one of everything. and I just never sell the original. A lot of them obviously get locked for the various missions, but that way, if we do get a mission like the PT Elites, I just push the button to collect it, and then I actually did have a decent amount of dupes at that point. But yeah, early in the cycle, you really don't want to hoard. If you're getting a premium over quick sell for a card, like a good solid premium, sell and then buy back later. But don't forget the buyback later part of it. And we'll talk to the buyback later in a couple other contexts, but that's the really important thing is if you're not sure what you're going to do with the card, don't just rush to, say, oh, yeah, it's an original, I can't sell it. It's probably going to drop further in value, and you're going to have multiple opportunities to buy it at that cheaper price before it ever goes into mission. Now, sometimes, you'll get unlucky and they'll do an early mission because they might want to change things up, and we might get the equivalent of PT Elite much earlier in the year. You never know. But, most likely, you're going to be safe with that the early part of the year is just going to be the live missions like we've had for the last 4 years. Who knows? They might decide to change that up in PT25, but I think that it seems like a good fit for how they start the year every year. So I would expect maybe they'll tweak it, but I would expect some version of that.
Yeah. Speaking of the live, I've never gone after the live missions early. It doesn't make sense to me, knowing the long game plan of Perfect Team, knowing that Ken Caminiti, is going to be out of the picture very soon. So why play him for a couple weeks? Hank Aaron did last a long time in OOTP23. So there is the rare time you do get that long lasting card, but 95% of the time, these cards you're working for to get in live missions and paying high prices for the live cards, they're going to be obsolete within 2 or 3 weeks with the new cards coming out. Okay, let's go on to talk about some of the more detailed factors. Supply and demand in a marketplace always is important. So maybe touch on that a little bit.
Sure. So this is just kind of a basic overview. When you're trying to figure out what a card's worth, there's a lot to unpack. From the demand side, obviously the utility of the card is first and foremost. If it's a card that plays in league play at the highest levels, it's going to command the big premium. Whether there's a big supply of them or a very limited supply, there's going to be a lot of demand. Also, it's important to remember that some cards will come out that have no real league play value. For example, the limited edition Eugenio Suarez or the limited edition Ozzy that has a lot of utility for tournaments. And especially those two cards are good examples of cards that, dominate for their particular level for bronze, but also play in a lot of cap formats and play up in some, silver formats and things like that. So the more tournaments that a card can play in, the more valid demand is going to have. Obviously, mission value is going to, be a big factor in demand. Some of that is going to be speculative that, if a card comes out and it's not on a mission, but they've announced something coming. Like, for example, it seems pretty likely that the PT Elite cards that we got for locking all the live cards are going to be in missions at some point. And right now they have some sort of speculative mission value, but we don't know exactly. We don't know if the rewards are going to be good or bad. We don't know how hard the missions are going to be. So I think there's a limited amount of a mission value. Obviously, once those missions are announced, the value could go way up. We saw that with the BREF cards, is that the missions were very hard. And so even though there were a lot of those cards out there, because some of those BREF cards were in Spotlight packs 4 or more times, the prices just skyrocketed. Cards that you could have bought for, 10, 20,000 were suddenly going for, I think Zach Cozart is a card that, because it's, kind of a bottleneck card, I've seen, being listed for 150, 200,000. I sold one for 125 and feel like I probably sold too low. And so that can be a huge driver of value. Right. Also, for live cards, the live spec value, as we get closer to an update, cards will move towards, towards whatever the tier that the quick sell is moving up to. And so You can kind of factor that into prices. For some of the less valuable cards, that can be a big move. And then one of the things that I think some people recognize and some people ignore is that certain cards and certain players just have value based on who they are and the attachment people have to them. For example, a Ricky Henderson card is always going to be popular, even if the card's not very good. And Yankee cards often seem to have a little bit extra, value. There seems to be demand. There seems to be, I think, more teams that do theme teams around certain teams, and that drives a little bit of extra value. So that it's not as big a factor as the first couple, but that definitely is some part of the equation. And then supply factors. There's really two big things that control supply. How many are being released? Which for limited editions, we know the number, and can kind of control, in our minds how the supply is going to work. Tournament cards, we know that starts out that it's a trickle, and then over time, and there end up being a lot of them. Spotlights kind of create almost an instant fire hose that the minute spotlights are open, there's often a very large number, especially for the silver and gold tier. There's a lot of the cards available right away, and then that hose gets turned off because they stop releasing the spotlight cards after 3 days, and then suddenly they're hard to find for a few days, and then often they turn that hose right back on. And then how the cards are available can also be a big factor. The cards that you can only get from missions, there's kind of theoretically almost an infinite supply because everybody can complete the mission, and so there could be crazy numbers. We saw that with Jeff Mathis. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, this card is so hard to get." And then now people are like giving that card away, even though it's still a very viable tournament card, because there's just at a certain point everybody's been able to do the mission now, because the cards that you needed are so plentiful. And then tournament cards again get released very differently. Often the first week that we know about them, there's none actually in packs for the perfect cards. And so, a lot of times that builds up some extra demand as people see the cards and they want them and they start putting up buy orders, but they can't get them. And then it takes like a week before the tournaments turn over and they start showing up in packs. And then you see crazy things like, I think one of the new Mariano Rivera cards went for $2.5 million. And the first Marcus Semien went for $2.2 million, and some of the Votto cards gone for like $1.5 million. So that's one of those things where recognizing that kind of some of that pent up demand because of how the supply makes it to the market can change the price. So you got to sometimes keep that in mind, and that's. I don't know if I put it somewhere in the slides, but this feels like a good point to talk about. One of the things that's really important is if you get lucky and get a new card, whether it's from a tournament or you pull an LE or you open a spotlight pack and you get you get the opportunity to make the first sale on a card. I think a lot of people rush to get a sale and don't maximize their return on the opportunity that they got. And so often I see, if the first person who posts in the fire polls is a regular player who I know, they'll put it up at a price that I'm like, look at it, be like, that might be a little bit overpriced. I would have gone maybe a little bit less. Like they'll put up a card for 600,000, be like, I bet he only gets, 4 or 5, but it's not far off. But a lot of times if somebody, post a fire poll and it's like their first perfect in months, they'll rush to list it and they'll get 250,000 for it. And then the next one will go for 450,000. And so, you never know whether that first sale, is because somebody, misclicked or they sold it to a friend or something like that. But I think a lot of times, especially based on when you see, who posted the first poll in fire polls, that it's somebody who just rushed to get a sale and didn't really know how to price the card. Now, just on a baseline level, if you're not sure, ask. Like, ask me, ask anybody that you know that plays the game a lot. We're happy to help. Now, to some degree, if I want the card, it's got like I'm gonna try and give you as honest as an answer as possible. But at least I'm gonna give you the ballpark. But a lot of people, and if you ask in Maine, and you might get a bunch of different answers, and you can kind of sort through the answers you get. But it, like, if you're not sure, find people that will help you out with it, because it's silly for a card that you could be getting 600,000, which might completely change the course of your team for the year, and you only get 250. You've made a huge mistake, and you probably don't even know it. A couple of the times I've seen recently where somebody made that first sale, and it was a terrible sale in terms of what that card was probably worth. When they got called down on it in the Discord, they were very, they pushed back, and they're like, why are you, giving me a hard time? Why are you making fun of me? And it's like, no, we want people to play the game well. And it affects everybody when the market, for a card gets, artificially lowered. And it hurts the player that it happens to. It's better to educate everybody and have everybody play the game better. It makes it a more competitive game, makes it a more interesting game. So, one, ask. Two, take the time to think. Don't feel like I have to sell this card. Also, it's not like the first sale is going to be 600,000 and the next sale is 250. Like, a lot of times, the next sale might actually be more, like, or it's probably a lot of times, you'll see if a first sale is at 600,000, somebody will put a buy order up for that same 600,000 because they're like, okay, I like that price. So don't feel like, especially if it's a tournament card or an LE, they're just not going to come in the market. Or even if it's, spotlight packs, it's not like the new 100 card is going to just suddenly appear in massive volume. Like, take the new A-Rod card. Even the first time it was in spotlight packs, most of the sales were 800,000. And then the second time it was in spotlight packs, the sales were still 700,000. And I think the L10 still almost 700,000 after 2 times being in spotlights. It's a very in-demand card. So anybody who pulled it in either round of spotlights got a good payday for selling it. You didn't have to be the first one. You probably might have even made more money if you were a little bit later and people missed out on a couple. I think there were a few random early sales that were a little low in like the 400,000 range. So, it's what I said before, patience. But then the second part is don't panic. Don't feel like, I've got this, I got to sell it quick. A lot of times when I've sold things quickly because I was like, this might go down, I realized afterwards that I could have gotten more if I just kind of relaxed, reassessed the situation. One of the things that does help, I talk to a lot of people about the game. So if I'm kind of confused, I'll run it by a few people and get their opinion, and help get some kind of reality check from them. So to the extent you feel comfortable, reaching out to other people in the community, I highly recommend it. I think that there's more willingness to give honest advice and opinion than there is willingness to go out and ask for it. One of, I think, the absolute best success stories of PT24 is Lidora, which is Midgar Materia. He's taking a break now, but basically he didn't really play the first couple months of the season. He didn't play any tournaments. He just kind of was getting a feel for the game, but he was a sponge. He reached out to Kidneys. He reached out to Extaforus. He reached out to me. He asked questions constantly. He went back and watched every stream that Extaforus and Durden and I ever did, and then came back and asked questions about that. And he learned everything about the game until the point where he was kicking my butt for months. And that's the way to do it. Like, he wasn't afraid to reach out and ask questions and get better. I was happy to have the conversations and happy to, help him get better, because it made it more interesting for me to have more competition.
And speaking of, the Kidneys Discord, I put a link in the chat here. If you're not on the Kidneys Discord, rather than asking in Maine and having all these, different answers, that's a great location to go and seek advice, ask questions. Some of the best minds in the game are in that Discord and willing to help you out. So even though Kidneys may not play OOTP above the iron level this year, he's got a welcoming community there, willing to help people out. And you heard the success stories. I guess before we move on, a couple comments about what you said about the supply factors, demand factors. Keep in mind too that PT Plus cards sometimes can be really useful. The Kristen Yelich, when it came out, the Barry Larkin, I think are probably the two best free gifts that we have. So there's going to be quite a few of those. I think initially, don't overpay for a PT Plus card. Patience, I think, is key as well, especially if you're not in perfect league. I can understand if you're in the top league, you may want to spend a little more because here's your chance. So you buy that Rivera, you buy that top end card. But if you're not in perfect league, just wait, be patient. That Jake Arrieta, very expensive for a long time, but as more and more people were winning perfect tournaments, that card went from like 700,000 down to 300,000, down to 200,000 within 3 or 4 days. So be patient. The price on tournament cards, even the perfect ones, will drop over time. And you mentioned bottlenecks, Aster. I think this year has been a really good year for avoiding bottlenecks. I remember two specific ones. One was the Jackie Robinson, where if you had a Duke Schneider or you had a Campanella, you made out pretty good with your duplicates. And then, like you mentioned recently, with the Cozart card. But otherwise, I think bottlenecks have been pretty good this cycle. Or avoiding
Yeah,
them.
there haven't been that many here and there. And some, part of what's interesting is that that these new BREF missions are, there's a couple little bottlenecks, but then there's also just some brutal, missions. Like I was able to do all of them right away. I think I need to only buy one card on my main to finish all of them. But on my alt, I had a few of them done. But like I looked, I was like, oh, Roy Halladay Diamond Mission. I needed 9 of the 10 that you need for that. And all of them are like 60K plus. And I was like, that seems pretty daunting to try and, collect right now. So I'm just like, okay, I'm putting that aside, and maybe I'll come back and look at it later when prices have dropped. But yeah, I just think that sometimes you have to look at a mission and say this probably is not worth doing right now, and that's what I've done for my alt with these BREF missions. And there's not a ton of bottlenecks in there, but there's also just some missions where you just need that you need 5 perfects or you need 10 diamond cards. If you were collecting, if you were buying the spotlights, I actually on my main, I had a ton of dupes of all those, and I was able to, sell a lot of them and make a good amount of points back from doing that, and then use that to buy some of those exclusive packs. But if you didn't prepare for these missions, to try and collect now is really difficult.
And one of the best fire polls early in the cycle, people would post their Duke Schneider. Woohoo! Yeah. I pulled a Duke Schneider for the Jackie Robinson. All right, we can fly through a lot of these card value cycles because you mentioned them, but go at a pace that you want. We got about 20 to 30 minutes left, Aster. So
okay, yeah, I'm just going to run through this really quick. We've kind of touched on some of it, but one of the things that's been interesting this year is that spotlights have really changed kind of the life cycle of a card, of kind of how their value changes over the course of, from them being released. It used to be that the first sale was always, whether the card was from mission or from packs, the first sale was sky high price. And then it slowly moved down from there as more and more entered. And the only thing that really changed value is if there was then later in a mission that you would see a spike in price. And sometimes if the mission came so much later, there wouldn't even really be a spike in price because everybody already had the card. Now, with spotlights, You have, the first sale. I don't think people, are like really focusing on maximizing that sale, as we talked about. So sometimes you have some underpricing in the beginning, but then you have slightly higher sales later. So sometimes it's a little bit up and down at the beginning. The first few sales can be within a wide range. Usually then it'll settle in as kind of a default price from Thursday to Saturday, is, especially for the elite cards. And then, we'll see kind of a slight tail down from that Thursday to Saturday range. And then once the spotlight packs are out, then it'll jump back up in value that next week when the supply has pretty much been eliminated and people are still wanting those cards. One of the things we've seen this year, that kind of demonstrates the difference is there have been a couple random cards that should have been in spotlight packs initially, but weren't. For example, the Baseball Reference Corey Seager wasn't in the first round of spotlight packs after it was released because it was like a special alumni, release. And so it was just in standard packs for, I think, a week or two before it got put in spotlights. And so that card basically sold for its initial price for the first, large number of sales until it got in spotlights. And then that price started coming down. And then Home Run Johnson also, was a card that, basically didn't exist for the first, while everybody was getting all the other Negro League cards in spotlight packs, it wasn't in the packs. And so it really almost didn't exist for a couple days. And then that card kind of retained value longer until it got put in spotlights the following week.
Yeah, and same with Noodles Han. I think that was another one that was missed out in the first week of spotlight packs
Probably not quite as much, just because it wasn't quite as good of a card. But yeah, that was definitely another example of that. We can go on to the next slide. So the pattern does change a little bit based on whether the card, is a meta card. For example, I pointed out the A-Rod BREF card. That, the first couple sales I think were a little low, but then the price shot back up. And then it pretty much stayed consistent through the first round of spotlights at like 800,000. And then, it started to dip a little bit at the end of that Thursday to Saturday cycle. If a card comes out and it's got missions right away, cards will usually hold value through the initial round of spotlights. But non-mission cards will often tank in value after the first day or two and drop down significantly. There'll be a few people who are willing to pay top dollar because it's fits a theme team, or it's a player they like, or they think it. The significance of Thursday to Saturday music lessons is that that's when spotlight packs are available. So at the end of the Twip stream, they usually, like an hour or so later, they put out spotlight packs, and then they usually leave packs around noon, 1 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday. And so there's, sometimes it'll depend on how good of a deal the, spotlight packs are as to how much supply there's going to be. But generally, there's going to be a decent amount of supply from Thursday to Saturday, but then that supply dries up when nobody can buy the spotlight packs anymore, and it's only through regular packs, which, especially at this point in the year when there's I think 4,500 or more packable cards, it's going to be really hard to pull any of the new cards from regular packs. And then going on to the next slide, we see that at the end of that, Thursday to Saturday cycle, Sunday through Wednesday, prices start moving up. And often that change in price can be as much as, 40-50% increase. And that's a really good money making opportunity to flip cards, because if you wait and don't, whether you buy spotlight packs, but if you buy spotlight packs, or if you just buy the cards and then hold on to them, even just for 3-4 days, you can often make 40 to 50% on your money. Obviously, you lose the tax, but that's a nice return for just a couple days of work. And then you can kind of do that every week. So that's where the value I was talking about of building up a nest egg of 500,000 points really, kicks in. If you start a cycle of spotlights with 500,000 points, and let's say you invest half of that in cards that you think are going to be popular, whether because they have mission value or tournament value, if you can get them at a reasonable price and use buy orders to buy them, below the L10, and then you sell them at 40, 50% above the L10, you might in less than a week go from 500,000 to like 750,000, or maybe a little less. Let's say 650,000, and then the next week you invest 300,000 into it, and you walk away with 450,000. So now you're talking about you have 750, and you do that enough, you can really start, and it starts growing exponentially. You still keep some in reserve just in case it doesn't go as well as you plan, and to keep giving yourself flexibility. But this is a really simple way to grow your points, is just by investing in these cycles. Now, you have to be careful. Who knows how they do spotlights next year? They might change it up. It might not be the same cycle. But one of the things is you can kind of sit out the first couple and see if it follows a pattern. It might not be the same pattern as this year, but it likely is going to set up a pattern, because they're not going to want to reinvent the wheel every week. They're going to kind of set an expectation, and that's how it's going to be. So I would look and see at the beginning of the year, are they doing spotlights the same way? And if so, is the market following the same pattern? Most likely it will. If they change it up, might have some consequences on the pattern. Then subsequent rounds of spotlights, usually, price comes down a little bit. Meta cards usually stay up. For example, A-Rod second time around in spotlights was still 600, 700,000. The new Dwight Gooden card held its value until we got all those other really good right-handed pitchers, and he's kind of come down to more like 400,000, 500,000, 450,000, but still retained a good amount of value for now. Usually it's the third round of spotlights where cards really crater in price, especially if they haven't been in a mission yet. Often you can get, diamond cards for under 10,000. You can get gold cards for under 2,000. If they've been in spotlights 3 times and there's no missions involved. And even if there are missions involved, if they're not super hard missions, often the prices will very much tank.
All right. And spotlights, again, who knows, like Aster said, how they're going to work next year. It can be, maybe they don't have spotlights. Maybe there are different types of packs. Maybe they're more exclusive packs like we've seen recently. But as of now, that's excellent advice on. Now, here's a question I have, since we're talking about building up your perfect points. When is the time to use a bulk of them? Like, sure, you accumulate perfect points, but do you save them until the last couple months of the cycle? Do you spend a little bit here? Like, when for you is the perfect time to use them?
So it depends on a number of factors, and they and we can kind of break down. There's a couple different things that I look at. One is I tended to save up my perfect points, and then I kind of went all in for each of the PTCS tournaments. And so that was my plan, is build up a bunch of points. Often going into a PTCS, I would have, 3-4 million points. And then I would see what the format is, see what the new content is. And if there was old stuff that I didn't have, I would go buy it. If there was new stuff that, that was going to be rare, I especially wanted to get those cards, because, if there was a new card, it was likely to be the best card for the format. And not everybody was going to have them. I thought that would be a nice advantage in a lot of the formats. So having the money or the points saved up at that point was a really big advantage, to be able to go essentially all in towards the PTCS, especially if the rewards were good. That if I did well in the PTCS, I could sell the reward and make back a lot of that money. Also, some of the cards you can still sell. It's not like you're stuck with them. you might not get the premium that you paid to get them before the PTCS, but you still might be able to get a decent percentage of your money back. Maybe you sell it for 75 cents on the dollar and at least get some points back. And you factor that in with the money you might get from selling some of the rewards, or also just keeping the rewards and having the benefit of getting a rare, valuable card onto your team. The other thing that I know a lot of people do is they wait until they make Perfect League, and then that's the time that they've saved up points to go and kind of fill any holes in their roster. And then another big thing is, you just have to kind of see what the what the stage is with regard to the the mission cycle. So a great opportunity was when they announced Immortals, and it was going to be this whole comprehensive mission set with all these levels and layers. It's like, okay, that should be a signal to save up some points and start collecting, these Immortal cards before like all of the missions were out, and and kind of try to buy them cheaply when they were in spotlights and things like that, and be able to collect a lot of the cards, and then be able to do that whole mission. That if you're trying to do it where, okay, I saved up 100,000, I'm going to buy one Immortals card, then I start from scratch and save up another 100,000. It could take a long time to complete that Immortals mission. But if you were smart about it and you'd saved up some points in the months that the Immortals was going on, and then could finish it right away, you suddenly had a Perfect League caliber team without the usual expense of what it takes to points that you need to have a Perfect League caliber team. The downside is kind of a lot of teams had a Perfect League caliber team by finishing Immortals, but still it put you in the ballpark. And then if you're smart with your settings and with your strategies and things like that, you would have a puncher's chance to compete in Perfect League, even if you hadn't been there prior to the cycle. So sometimes it's just a matter of knowing, that a big mission program is going to give you the opportunity to go all in. Another example would be when they announced a new tournament batch. You were talking about that Arietta card. I sold, I think, the second or third Arietta for 1.5 million. And then I bought him back when I was like, okay, I now want to actually play him. So I bought him back for, I think, 400,000. I was able to pocket, nearly $1 million on the trend. Basically, I call that a reverse flip. So you have the card, you sell it, and then you buy it back later, and you pocket a lot of money from the difference. And it probably was only like 2 weeks, maybe 3, that I didn't have the card. And maybe I would have done a little bit better in league or in some tournaments with the card, but probably not enough to justify, I think 900 or 950K in profit.
Okay, well, we're going to get on to that topic. For some people, flipping, there's ethical issues with that. I don't know how that applies. I know when you talk about, concert tickets and things like that, flipping is kind of like ethically, but in this game, I don't know if that applies. But funny with the Immortal missions, you got to keep in mind that if you accumulate a lot of perfect points, you got to really consider how much of the cycle we have left to go. Because I remember when Immortals came out, everyone looked at them and said, oh, these are, going to last till the end of the cycle, and I just need to get these and I'm set. And Warbot came out and said, you know what? I think by Christmas, a lot of the Immortals are going to be out of the meta. And people are like, oh, no, these are game breakers. They're going to be forever. And then we had the Elite come out after. We had the new tournament cards come out after. We had the Baseball Reference 4 cards come out after. And I'm pretty sure now if we look at the meta, they're not all Immortals.
No.
So keep that in mind, that the meta moves fairly quickly with a lot of the cards. Not all of them, but a lot of the cards move fairly quickly. So if you're banked up 3 million, you spent it all on the Immortals, well, hopefully you're in Perfect League. Hopefully you're taking advantage of that opportunity in Perfect, because if you're down in Bronze and you're buying all these Immortals, probably not a good decision, because by the time you get up to Diamond, they're probably not going to be meta anymore.
Right.
So,
well, I mean, I think just to push back a little bit on that, we did get, I think, probably almost 2 full months where the Immortals kind of were the dominant cards, because the PT Elite didn't really knock that many Immortals cards out of the meta. It was just kind of like sort of some options, and if you were missing a couple of cards, but certainly now the last week or two with the tournament cards and the exclusive cards and the BREF cards, I would say most teams are probably only half Immortals at this point, and that's pretty surprising, but not entirely surprising. I mean, because again, to a certain point, there has to be power creep. Otherwise, everybody just stops playing the game if there's not newer, better cards throughout the cycle. The pace of the power creep. Isidafo, you're a bad example. You won every tournament last week. You have all the TV5 cards.
Yeah, but and the point is, they were a great set. They were great cards. They were the best of the cycle at the time. I guess just don't spend your load banking on a set like that taking you till the end of the cycle. Like pick and choose wisely. Right. Or if you're in gold, diamond, or perfect and you want to make your run completely, but if you're way down in the lower levels, like you said, they last about 2 months, so you got to make a pretty good run with those cards before they are taken out of the meta.
Well, it's all about what your expectations are and what your goals are. Because if your goal is, I'm playing this year and I want to make Perfect League once, then and let's say you're in gold and you can finish Immortals, you're going to very quickly. I think my computer's dying again. We're going to get that. Let me see. I don't think there's much I can do.
Do you just want to do one more restart and then talk about
let me do one quick restart. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So Aster coming back with one more short little segment here, and then we're going to take you over to EVC and check out how things are going in the theme team. Yeah. The mothership is calling. Yeah. Again, those overheated computers. So again, thank you guys for tuning in. Only going to be on for about another 15 minutes here at the most. Back tonight for the hockey show. Yeah, the hockey broadcast is tonight. Going to talk about what's going on in the NHL. Going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the World Junior Tournament. Now that the preliminary rounds are done, we're going off to the playoffs with the World Juniors. So 9:30 tonight, Eastern Standard Time. Hope you can check that out. Dr. Dynastic not going on, as far as I know, with Monday Night Baseball because of the regular OOTP Yule log that is taking place. And again, that usually lasts until about 2 a.m. Eastern, 1 a.m. Eastern, the Yule log. So you can have multiple windows open, get your affiliate packs, get your Yule log packs, put in a couple players that you want to see all the cards from all versions of the game. And a lot of streaming going on, even though it's New Year's Day, the Commish, EVC, the main channel. And I will be back tomorrow for the regular show, and we'll help rebuild the theme team tomorrow. But today was all dedicated to having Aster on. What else do we got going on in the chat? Isidafo, Aaron is the only Immortal left that should be on every roster. Plus Childs if you don't have the right card. Okay, good to know. Yes, it was his computer overheating, but he is back. All right, before we talk about flipping, I never asked you, do you watch hockey, and do you have a favorite hockey team?
So you've now brought up my greatest childhood trauma, and I'm not sure if I like you anymore. I was a big North Stars fan, and when I was 12 years old, they took the North Stars away and moved them to Dallas, and I vowed to never watch hockey again. And so I have not followed hockey, and thankfully it's no longer on television, so it works out very well.
Even when the Minnesota Wild came back or came in?
At that point, I wasn't living in Minnesota anymore. my aunt used to go to games here in New York, and I went once or twice with her. But I've just never been interested in hockey ever since then. And I had friends. Minnesota hockey was huge, so I followed high school and college hockey a little bit, but NHL, no interest. And now that I'm older, I don't pay attention to hockey at all. I follow most other sports, but that was just one too many for me.
And I have to say, if you're a Minnesota North Stars fan, one of the best jerseys was that Minnesota North Stars jersey with the green, Mike Modano. I just loved that color combination for that period of time. And yeah, a lot of great memories there, except for when you played Pittsburgh in the final. That's probably another trauma.
Well, but it wasn't really though, because we were the bottom seed. We probably shouldn't have even been in the playoffs. And then the goalie, and I can't even remember his name, went on a heater, and we made it all the way to the finals. The owner was so excited. He was talking about building a underground mall that was going to connect the stadium to the Mall of America, investing a ton of money into the stadium, so that the stadium and the mall were going to kind of be combined underground. And then less than a year later, he moved the team to Dallas, and they just offered more money. And so it was just one of those things where, it was the first real time where they were competitive and they made a run, and we knew we were going to lose to Pittsburgh. We thought we were going to lose every round before that, but it was just such a fun run. Yeah. And then to immediately be, to have the team just disappear after that was pretty brutal.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about the flipping aspect of acquiring more PP.
Okay, so I kind of got into this a little bit, but just to go to your point first, I think, if you have a moral compunction about, buying a card and then listing it for a higher price later, I don't think you're playing the right game. Like, I just don't think you're going to be able to be competitive. I don't see what the moral aspect of it. The L10 is an average. Sometimes it sells below, sometimes it sells above. Generally speaking, buy orders will often fill at 60, 70% of L10. But then sell orders often are slightly above L10. Most people, when they list a card, if it's in somewhat demand, will list slightly, maybe 10, 20% above L10. You may say, oh, well, I don't want to gouge people, and so I won't list a card for double L10. But really, L10 is an imperfect way of figuring out the value of a card. And some cards can be heavily influenced by one weird sale, where the first sale of the card was for 2.2 million because somebody just really wanted to have that card, when nobody else was willing to pay more than, let's say, $1.5 million. And so the L10 is going to have that 2.2 million sale baked in for a long time. By the same inference, that Mordecai Brown, the first couple sales were 180, 200,000. So the L10 stayed artificially low, but people were buying it for, I think there's a buy order now for like 500,000+. And so, I don't see any ethical problem in, you're listing a card on a marketplace. People don't have to, have to buy it if they don't want to. I think there's, more ethical problems if you go on the Discord and, you're hyping up your sale, and, there's obviously, situations where people, kind of use, their own buy order to push people up to pay a higher price for a card. I think there's things like that you could do that would be far more unethical. But I just think in this game, if you want to be competitive, you have to get full value for the cards that you get lucky enough, to pull or to win, or that you buy, if you buy smart and, get some buy orders filled and then sell those cards later, that those are all advantages that you have to take advantage of, especially if you're not going to spend money on the game, which you certainly don't have to. So what I try and do for flipping is kind of make the universe of cards, because there's thousands of cards in the game, make the universe smaller. So I usually pick a particular tier of card or type of card that fits the budget of how much I want to spend on investing and flipping. So for example, I threw out the number earlier of 500,000. So if I've saved up 500,000, I might maybe want to invest 250,000 in cards that I'm going to flip. If that's the case, I probably want to be investing in cards, maybe 10,000 a card, so I can buy 25 of them. Would be a good kind of general thing. I could probably spend a little bit more and maybe only buy 15 or 20, but I want to have some diversification. I don't really want to buy like 10 copies of all these cards just in case the card gets in an easy mission and doesn't end up having a lot of value. But I'll buy 3 or 4 maybe of some of the cards that I think are going to go up. And then what I'll do is I'll put up buy orders to try and buy the cards at between 50 and 60% of L10. But I'll pick usually cards that are kind of fairly recently been relevant, either because they were just in spotlights or they were just in a new mission, because there's just going to be the demand that people are going to be buying and selling. So I think people are going to be filling my buy orders. And then the big thing is, going back to what we were talking before, is I really want to follow the cycle of the spotlight packs. Is that I want to buy when the cards are in spotlights and people are getting into undercut wars to get rid of their cards so they can buy more spotlights. And then I want to sell when the cards are not in spotlights. Now, exclusive packs are really interesting and are an opportunity right now, because the cards are in packs right now. But once they're out of packs, I think with the first round of exclusives, there was like one more like 24-hour window where they were available again. But other than that, they haven't really been available. And given the fact that those cards are, all dead ball cards, I don't know if we're going to, get that many more good dead ball cards for the rest of the cycle. We'll probably get some, but those might end up being viable dead ball cards for the entire rest of the cycle. And I'm sure we'll get some, but those cards are probably going to hold on to value. That Mordecai Brown, Istafel was just saying that, it could end up being a 1 million point card once exclusive packs are gone. If it still stays in the meta, I wouldn't be surprised by that. And some of like the diamond cards, I think could be, could double in value, in a couple weeks. So that would be a situation where I might think about buying up some of those cards or buying some of these exclusive packs to take a shot at the Mordecai. Because even now, even if you're just in a rush to sell and you sell for 555,000, that's a pretty good return if you happen to pull one. But definitely, you might, if they once they go out of packs, if you ended up holding onto it and get 1 million for it, that's a pretty good return on your investment.
Yeah, we can see, in the card shop here, the listed by highest sell order and the mark prior. Of course, the PTCS cards and the PTMS cards tend to hold their value, especially the really good ones, for a long, long time. And the newer cards as well, the Joey Votto, the Mordecai Brown, the Shohei Ohtani, over 500,000. So we've probably got, between 10 and 20 cards that are currently listed over 400,000 perfect points.
Right. Now, one of the things important to recognize in looking at that, like, for example, that Mark Pryor is not selling for 1.5 million. It's with all the new right-handed pitchers, it's just not, it's probably their teams that are still using him as a bullpen piece, but almost everybody has better starters than that now. So that's just somebody who is stubborn and wants to get the return that they would have gotten, a couple months ago for Pryor, that they still want to get it now. And so they'll just leave it up there because they're not using Pryor. I don't think it's really going to sell. Spawn, same thing, a little bit closer because there's just not that as many lefties, but I'd be really surprised. Hartnett, same thing. The Cruise, you can see it's well below L10, but I don't even think it'll sell for 700,000. Kluber even more so than prior. There's not a Seaver up, but I think Seaver's price will have gone down a lot. Hank, just tough to. There's usually not very many for sale, so that's a little bit different. But I think the PTCS cards.
All right. Well, let's go back and finish off your conversation about flipping. And I do agree with you. I think in game is a lot different than in the world out there where you're buying 150 concert tickets to Taylor Swift and you're quadrupling the price to unreasonable amounts. But just curious what your take was on it, because for some people it's a moral issue. For me, it's not so much a moral issue, but for some people it is. So I just wanted to hear what your take was on it. So anything else on this slide here that we need to go through?
No, I think that was about it. We've kind of already discussed all of this, but just as a couple of warnings, if you start getting into flipping and you're trying to do this every week to try and generate points, it's going to be very time intensive. It's not, you kind of have to be paying attention to the market on a fairly regular basis to see when are the opportunities to buy. It does help that the spotlights kind of create certain days where, you'll figure out pretty quickly. Like I found that, if I'm not buying the spotlight packs, but I'm buying the cards, I tend to buy the cards on like Friday evening when I get home from work, and then into Saturday morning. I find sometimes that's best price, but also oddly sometimes it's Thursday evening that people have just been buying up spotlights and just trying to rush to sell so that they can buy more. And so you kind of, sometimes it's a little bit different. I find that depends a lot on how good a value those spotlight packs are, and how many people are buying, and which is always hard to kind of guesstimate. But and then selling, it's usually Tuesday, Wednesday is the best time to sell. But you do have to spend some time on those days buying and then selling, because if you ignore it, if you buy a bunch on, let's say, Friday, and then you don't sell them on Tuesday or Wednesday, well, if they get in the spotlights again, they decrease in value, and now you missed your opportunity, to sell. And that's the other reason why I don't buy too many of any individual card, because it might be easy to sell one or two, or maybe even three or four, but to sell 10 of one specific card, unless it's insanely popular, that can be really difficult. And then the last thing I guess we'll talk about is the reverse flip. We kind of talked about this a little bit before. This is just where you obtain a card either through you complete a mission, or let's say you're even the first person to pull a packable, or you win a tournament and you have a card and it's got a ton of value. It's sell it now, get the premium for it, and then buy it back later, and then keep the difference. And so often if you're not trying to, compete to get in Perfect League, or you move up a level and you can afford to, give up that card for a few weeks, you can often make a huge amount on a reverse flip by, as I gave the example, I won Arietta, one of the early ones. I listed it for $1.5 million. It sold very quickly. And then I waited a couple of weeks and then I bought it back when I got up to Perfect League. But I only paid $400,000. And so I ended up with, $950,000. So Zuckus, you don't really see the price history of a card. You just see the L10 and then the current buy order and sell order. That's the only information you have about the card. You kind of have to have been following the market to know where the prices have been.
Right. And then a couple more warnings about reverse flipping too that you had mentioned.
So just, keep in mind that sometimes it take a long time before the card drops in price. For example, Mr. Audit pointed out that he sold an A-Rod and is waiting to buy it back, but A-Rod has held up in price much more so than I think a lot of other cards. And so you may end up, being frustrated at times if you, if you sell a card and then realize you really wanted it, or your circumstance changed, suddenly you luck your way into Perfect League and now you could really use the card, but it would end up costing you just as much or more to buy it back. So it's not foolproof. One of the things I had on the slide earlier, but I didn't really talk about, is you're not going to get all of this right. You're going to make mistakes. The key thing is to try and keep the mistakes small and learn from your mistakes so you don't make them again in the future.
Right. And I think that was the last slide. Wow, so much to unpack there. I guess we talked a lot about how to make a lot of PP early in the game. How would you, to bookend it, now that we're late in the game, what advice do you have going into the last couple months? People that want to accumulate perfect points going forward now, what's the best strategy?
I think right now is that there's a couple of mission sets that we know that PT Elite is likely to have missions because we've gotten we got all these mission cards, one per team, plus there have been packables, plus there have been tournament awards. It seems fairly likely that they're going to be in missions. I don't know that we've gotten a 100% definitive answer as to that, but that seems pretty likely. And a lot of those cards, especially the mission reward cards, have gotten very, very cheap. And so that you can buy, if you want to spec, for example, I think I saw like Lars Nootbaar. I bought him for an alt that I wanted him for a tournament team, and he was like 6,000. Like, why not? You're not really you're not taking that big of a risk. Worst case scenario, you quick sell him for 4,000 if it turns out that he's never in a mission. But even cards like that most everybody has, a lot of people will have sold and they get anxious and they want to buy back, and they'll pay 10,000 or 12,000 that first day to buy the card back. So I wouldn't buy 10 copies, but I might buy a couple copies of some of those cards and see if you can't flip them. Also, like the tournament awards for the tournament batch 5, some of those are starting to get a little cheaper. The tournament batch 4 still have some ones that haven't been in missions. I might speculate in that. I'd also try and see if you can try out and maybe kind of play around with it to have a feel for next year with kind of buying up some cards in the next round of spotlights next week and on Thursday and Friday, and then work on selling them off. See if you can kind of develop for yourself kind of some simple rules of how much I'm going to invest, how many cards, what price range, how much am I going to buy them for, how much am I going to sell them for, what kind of return, and try it out. The first week maybe be a little bit conservative and just shoot for, I want a 25% profit, and then see if that works, and step it up the next time and shoot for a little bit higher. But this is a good time of the year that if you don't have any particular goal with your main team or with an alt team, is play around with it, save up some points. Don't buy the next one card you feel like you need if it's not going to make a massive if it's not going to put you over the hump, and just play around with doing some spec and see if you can get a feel for how to do it. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. I've been doing it a lot less the last few months. It's one of the benefits if you do it a lot early in the season and you build up a big trove of points. You don't have to grind as much and be buying and selling nearly as much. I'm still investing in some stuff that I think was going to go up, but I haven't really, spent as much time with it as I did early in the cycle. And so, there's an advantage to that. If you, as you do it early in the year, those points just, you can keep on, through the live spec and then through the, mission spec and flipping cards, you just can build up enough points where you don't have to spend as much time on it and can focus on tournaments or other things for the later part of the cycle.
Wow, what a great conversation. Thank you, Aster31. And I'm sure you'll be busy, prepping soon for the new PTCS. I think maybe we've only got maybe 2 or 3 of these left to go. And again, as someone mentioned earlier, we're still missing a peak Eddie Collins. We're missing I think the Ty Cobb. We're missing Cy Young. So there's still going to be some really good cards. We just don't know in the format whether they're tournament cards, PTCS cards, or some sort of packable card that are yet to come. And maybe even a 2-way Babe Ruth. We don't have our 2-way Babe Ruth yet, and hoping to get one of those. Last comment, since you use the card shop, and we talked about using the card shop for perfect points. If you could make one change in the card shop that helps users navigate it even better, maybe it's a filter, maybe it's a design feature, how would you change the card shop one way?
I would make it so that if you clicked on player's L10, it would actually show you the last 10 sales. And if there's only been one sale, it would just show you that the L10 is based on that one sale. And that way you could see, is there one crazy price? Has the L10 been dropping over time, or is it going up? So I would want to be able to see the trend by actually seeing a list of those last 10 sales. I think it would make it a lot easier, and it would be something that it would only be for the people who wanted to, click to see it for a particular card, but that it's there. I think that would be a nice benefit to help take some of the, misinformation that I think comes with just having one number in the L10.
Well said. Well said. I've heard a few people mention that. Aster, anytime you want to come back, just reach out, let me know. I always have time to bring you on, because I just think you provide so much insight to this game that, even though X24S doesn't listen to your advice all the time, there are other people that will. Exto, be patient. Be patient. All right. Well, thanks again, Aster31. Good luck in Perfect Team, and congratulations on all your success so far with your Minneapolis Millers.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year, everybody.
All right. Happy New Year, all. We are going to go right over to EVC and NYC. Don't forget, should be a new treasure trove set of cards out tomorrow. And get involved in the Laptop Hound Daily. Come on. Let's see some more of you guys over there competing for January, since we're just starting a new cycle here. And let's dethrone the Dodgers, who won this week. So winners today, congratulations again to the Tiger Cub. Tiger Cub, sounds like you won the bounty again in the Tiger Cub. Unfortunately, you just got the in-game packs today, because today's packs only went to the bounty winner for taking us out. That was the New York team. And again, 20 packs going to the Hoosman for winning the Laptop Daily monthly result, and the one-time winner going to the person that we drew earlier on. All right, guys, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day. See you tomorrow. See you next episode.
And every year has a share of tears. Every now and then it's gotta rain. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So have a good time. the sun can't shine every day. So have a good time. The sun can't shine every day.